Hey, it's April the 1st, otherwise known as April Fool's Day, and bizarrely, Canada's government chooses this day every year not only to raise our taxes, but to raise our own parliamentary paycheck. It's like they're making a fool of us. It's like they know what they're doing is a joke, but they're doing it anyways. I find the date astonishing, and I refuse to believe it's a coincidence. But it's a happy coincidence that our friend Franco Terrazzano of the Canadian Taxpayers Federation is making today the day he tells us about the details of his new book, a book called Axing the Tax, the rise and fall of Canada's carbon tax. And Franco joins us now. Franco, great to see you again. Congratulations on the new book.
Hey, thank you so much, Ezra. I really appreciate that.
April Fool's Day, like it really is crazy that that's the one day a year that they choose to raise so many of their taxes, including alcohol taxes, MP pay, senators pay. I don't know. I just can't get over the coincidence. Maybe it's just me, but it feels like an insult added to injury. Tell me, though, about your book, because you guys are really the number one watchdogs in Canada against tax hikes. Take it away. Tell me about your new book. You can get it on Amazon. Make the case to our Rebel News viewers for why they should pick up a copy of Axing the Tax.
Well, Prime Minister Mark Carney wrote a book, hundreds of pages long, praising the carbon tax. Here is the book showing you why the carbon tax always was and always will be a scam for the ordinary Canadians who are forced to pay the bill. And Ezra, as you know, as your listeners know, yes, Canadians forced the Liberal government to back down on their own consumer carbon tax. But look, folks, the fight against carbon taxes is not over yet. And that's one of the main reasons why I wrote this book, right? Because you can already see the carbon tax activists trying to spin this like, oh, well, the carbon tax was a good idea. Trudeau just bungled the policy or he messed up the communications. But, that couldn't be further from the truth. The carbon tax is always going to make your life more expensive, and it won't work to reduce emissions, especially in a place like Canada, where we are 1.4% of global emissions. So I wrote this book for two reasons. Number one, to show you where the carbon taxers are going to fight in the future. They're going to relabel, repackage, and try to force hidden carbon taxes onto Canadians. But number two, Ezra, I also wrote this book because this was really a David versus Goliath fight, right? For years, you had the politicians, the bureaucrats, the taxpayer-funded academics, the media talking heads, even big businesses telling Canadians to sit down, be quiet, and pay your carbon tax bill. But ordinary Canadians fought back. They went to rallies. They signed petitions. They emailed politicians. And they deserve to know that all their hard work paid off and that, you know what, if we keep fighting, we are going to end all carbon taxes in Canada.
Now, I want to point out that when Mark Carney signed his fake executive order, like he sort of copied that Trump style of signing a document in a lovely leather-bound booklet. If you read what he actually signed, he said that he was rescinding the consumer side carbon tax, not because he disagreed with it, not because it was wrong, not because it was counterproductive. He simply said it was divisive, that it divided us against each other, which is obviously true. Now, I think the division is like 80-20 people who are against it. But the reason I mention that, Franco, is that he's not disavowing it. He's not saying this is a bad idea. He's just saying, I've got to get through an election. An election, I need to get as many stones out of my shoe as I can before I start this race. Pierre Poilievre's been working on the carbon tax for years. Let me take his issue away from him. And I'm not going to say I'm against it. I'm just going to say for now it's divisive. So I think even the way he signed that fake order should chill us to the bone. Because the moment he's not worried about division anymore, I think he's going to spring it back in. And that's the thing. He didn't repeal the underlying legislation. Parliament has not reconvened. He's just, I don't even know if he has the power to do it. He's just said, I'm not going to collect it for a while.
Well, Ezra, you're very right to pick up on that and to keep an eye on it, right? So, first of all, up until 6 minutes ago, the Liberal government was bragging about the carbon tax, right? They're telling you if you care about the environment, you got to pay the carbon tax. The carbon tax will make you richer. somehow. So all but 6 minutes ago, those same politicians were praising the carbon tax. And Ezra, you are very right in your analysis, right? So what Carney did is he set the consumer carbon tax rates to 0. But the legislation is still on the books, which means that after the election, technically, politicians could come back to the House of Commons and crank up that carbon tax again. And remember, folks, Carney, he's not scrapping carbon taxes. He made it very clear during his Liberal leadership campaign that he wants to change the carbon tax, right? Relabel, repackage, hide the carbon tax. So what Carney wants to do is he wants to hammer Canadian businesses with huge hidden carbon taxes, and he hopes you won't notice when they pass those costs on to you through higher prices. And again, in this book, Axing the Tax, The Rise and Fall of Canada's Carbon Tax, why I think your readers will like it so much, it's not just about the history of the carbon tax or the politics of the carbon tax, but it shows your viewers what they need to look out for as politicians try to relabel and hide carbon taxes, as academics try to do the same thing, but also as international organizations try to force carbon taxes on the global citizenry. Okay, all of that is in this book.
You know, I'm so glad you mentioned international organizations, because Mark Carney is the NGO VIP. He was on the board of the World Economic Forum. He has not one, not two, but 3 passports. He calls himself European at a recent World Economic Forum panel. Last year, he told the U.S. Congress he lives in the UK. And I think he's being honest. I think he thinks of himself as a man bigger than any one country, but not just that he's big, that like Gulliver in Lilliput, you know, voters are those little pesky creatures trying to tie him down. And he's bigger than that. So it's not just that he thinks of himself as bigger than Canada. It's that he doesn't believe in the little people, the peasants, being able to steer. Like, he would rather listen to policy wonks at the World Economic Forum in Davos than to listen to what Joe Average has to say on the factory floor in any given town in Canada. I think I'm not going to call it snobbery, but it's sort of a vision of the elite governing sort of like a council of high priests versus the populist conservative referendum style of government that is popular, let's say, in Alberta.
Well, you know, a couple things let me touch on, okay? Because, you know, there's other media organizations, these big, important people in the media who actually let the cat out of the bag, so to speak, okay? And we reference this right in the book where they say, well, maybe it is time to go to a hidden carbon tax, because then at least the rubes won't be all up and frustrated about the carbon tax that they can see directly on their home heating bill, right? So look, they aren't for ending carbon taxes. They just don't want you to know that you're paying carbon taxes, right, folks? And it's not just politicians or media in Canada. It's also the international media league. You have organizations like the WEF, the United Nations, the IMF, pushing for these types of global carbon taxes. And I think there's a lot of ammunition in this book to help you do 2 things. Number one, fight back against any claim that the problem with the carbon tax was Trudeau. That is false. The problem with the carbon tax is the carbon tax. It makes the necessities of life more expensive, and it doesn't do anything to reduce global emissions. It just makes Canadians' lives more expensive. But number 2, it allows you to see where the next fight is going to be and how to be prepared for it.